Okay, we're live.
Great, thank you. I call this meeting to order, the Solid Waste Committee meeting on Thursday, June 13th at 12:03. Present are Councillor Nishioka.
Councillor Mickey Varney.
And we believe our other councillor, Deanna Gwynn, will be here shortly. So we'll get started. Do the rest of the staff want to introduce themselves?
Sure. My name is Ryan Zink. I'm the staff liaison for this committee.
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer.
I'm Callie Leinenbach, the budget manager.
And Nitin Joshi, I'm Blackman Operations Technology Manager, Public Works.
Juliana Douglas, Code Action Plan Manager.
Thank you. All right. We also have, we've been trying to connect with some of our guest members, but so far not present. Do I read these names?
Yeah, so we can do the welcome, we do approval of minutes,
Yes. Okay.
and then we can.
Perfect. Thank you. And so I now am ready to, and Deanna Gwynn has now just joined us. So I will hear a motion.
I move approval of our May 16th, 2024 minutes.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion moved by Councillor Varney and seconded by Councillor Gwynn for approval of our minutes. Any comments? Now have a vote of hands raised for yes. Good, approved. Thank you. So we're now on to public comment. And we have several guests here today, and I will go in the order of their thank you. In order of their name listed. And just to remind each of you, you have 3 minutes for your testimony. And again, so that you can be in front of the camera, we'll have you come to the seat here. So Jim Shepke, would you like to come and tell us what ward you're in? And we'll start your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, thank you, committee. Jim Shepke, Ward 2. And I'm here today with 3 gentlemen from Benton County who work with 350 Salem, Beyond Toxics in the Clean Air Now Coalition. And they're here today because they heard that you were going to take a field trip to Coffin Butte tomorrow. And when they heard about that, they asked me if it would be possible for them to come talk to you today before your field trip. And I said, it's a public meeting and public comment and you're welcome to come. So they're here today to give you a little perspective. You're going to hear from Ken Eklund and Kevin Kanaga. They're both with a group down that are neighbors of Coffin Butte called Valley Neighbors for Environmental Quality and Safety, VNEX. And that group's been around for about 3 years. They worked in a coalition to block the last proposal to expand the Coffin Butte landfill, and they were successful in preventing that. So you will hear from both of them. And then we also have Robert Orton, who is a former employee of Republic Services. He was the union steward at the Coffin Butte landfill until March when he was terminated for insubordination. And he told me that I could tell you that. He wanted you to know that. So I'm introducing them so they won't have to spend their 3 minutes introducing themselves. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. All right, so next person on the list is Kevin Kanaga. Am I saying it correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So go ahead and have a seat and we'll begin here. 3 minutes. Do your best.
Thank you. A little dump history. In 1942, Camp Adair Military Base begins waste disposal at the Coffin Butte site, basically a burn pit. Fast forward to 2008, landfill is purchased by Republic Services, a national waste hauling and landfill and company. Suddenly in 2017, Coffin Butte landfill has become an industrial scale landfill. Tonnage increased from 500,000 to nearly 1 million tons per year. Nearly doubling the tonnage, double the truck traffic, double the pollution and double the litter along haul routes. Your dump tour actually begins on your way to the dump as you begin to see increasing amounts of trash along haul routes. This roadside trash is pollution to farm, ranch, and residential properties. I've toured Republic Services landfill a couple of times, and on tour days, the operation will be as cleaned up as possible. The daily work area will be smaller than normal, with very limited amounts of trash blowing around. The roads will be well watered to reduce the amount of dust. Tour days are like real estate open houses, all shined up for the tour. On your landfill tour, keep in mind that the roads you're riding on are actually a pile of garbage. Yeah, a whole hillside is literally a pile of garbage. You can sort of see that outlined by the plastic sheeting that is intended to be a seal. The plastic sheeting is supposed to keep methane from escaping and also supposed to prevent rainfall from penetrating the landfill, and therefore reducing the amount of leachate generated. As you approach the landfill, please notice all the holes in the plastic and think about how much methane is escaping and how much rainfall is infiltrating. Meanwhile, neighbors of landfill often can't do yard work, enjoy their decks, or count on being able to host backyard events due to the smell of stench on what is known as dump days. We've recently been informed that Republic Services receives 2 or 3 truckloads of fish guts per week from fish processing facilities on the Oregon coast. Republic Services needs to change their practices of accepting solid waste that should be composted, and in this case, turned into fertilizer. Republic Services makes a profit by landfilling and is not incentivized to recycle. They mostly only recycle what is required by law. There's no gatekeeper at Republic Services landfill. No actual auditing of the solid waste they accept. Republic Services claims to be a green company and a good company for the environment. That is a completely false statement. As you tour the Coffin Butte landfill, please ask yourself how anyone could consider allowing an expansion at this site.
Your time.
Please don't count on an expansion.
So Ken, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming and giving your testimony. So next on the list is Robert Orton.
Great for the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Orton, member of International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 701, and formerly a steward and mechanic at Coffin Butte Landfill. Began working there roughly 3 years ago in March. About 6 months in, I realized the company that I researched and looked at is not the company that exists out there and operates that facility. Essentially, you're looking at working in the 5th most dangerous occupation in the US. The garbage recycling industry for a company that is unwilling to spend on safety. Tried to address these safety issues within the company locally, got nowhere. Tried to address them with DEQ. DEQ went nowhere. DEQ was more than happy to look at the videos and the pictures and things like that, but if they weren't there themselves to see it, then these things didn't happen. So when Covanta ash came in and wasn't wetted and was dumped dry and spread throughout the neighborhood, does not matter that we have timestamp videos of it. Does not matter that we were unable to call DEQ ahead of time to come out and look at it. So these things did not happen. No amount of calling them, the EPA, DEQ, OSHA. They're all willing to look at it, and Republic is all more than willing to happy to show it to them. Just like there are you people. What they need to know weeks in advance. As we knew, as employees, weeks in advance when these things were happening. Because what you were looking at, what you were cleaning up, what they were concerned about in that time frame are things they were not concerned about the rest of the year. I was fired back in March, 1 week after standing on the working face. After the company espoused we have no methane leaks up there. And videotaped an active methane leak literally at my feet where I was working on the working face. I presented that. to the Benton County Commissioners meeting in a public forum, in a venue that I'd been speaking out in for months. 1 week after doing that, I was fired. The last email I sent before I was fired regarding contaminated ground around the shop that they were simply gonna blast and excavate out of there. So if you ask one question tomorrow of Republic Services, you might ask them what they're doing with contaminated ground around the shop, which I'm sure by this point in time, they've just simply covered up and it doesn't exist. I can provide video, audio, emails to show that every avenue to address this, not only with the DEQ, within the state, within the company locally, but within the company nationally. Everyone's been made aware of this and nothing's been happening, and they want you people to look at the issues with blinders on. Because if you're looking at
Okay,
your
Rob,
piece.
your time is
Oh.
up. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. What does a methane leak look like?
What does a methane leak look like?
Yeah.
Literally gas bubbling up out of the ground. I would refer you to an article that Tracy Lowell wrote in the Statesman Journal, April 16th. And it contains a video clip. In fact, the video clip I took that shows an active methane leak up on the working face. What does a methane leak look like? Under the right conditions, ma'am, what you're seeing is you're seeing gas bubble up out of the ground where gas should not, in multiple locations, consistently. It is not an air pocket. It is not just something, momentarily deflating. You are literally far away from where they're actually dumping. What they do is they artificially expand the area of the working face up there beyond what they actually need, because the working face is not tested for methane. So the larger, quote unquote, my working face is, the larger area I am not testing gas, but that whole area leaks, man. All of it.
Okay, good, thank you. I was curious, which union?
International Union of Operating Engineers, man, Local 701.
Okay.
And again,
you bargained with whom?
I bargained with Republic Services, Brett Davis, the regional manager, who was also incidentally the gentleman that fired me as a result of this, as I was fired during negotiations for our first contract following unionization. It had been brutal, multiple NLRPs for violating multiple things. Look at the totality of the company. Look at the amount that they paid in fines in the last 20 years. Now, again, that dump is the most profitable site of Republic Services nationwide. You have to ask yourself why, and it's because they are running with no guardrails. It's because the solid waste engineer, who is auspiciously in control of the area, his last job was as a compliance officer with Republic Services. But then when the EPA comes in and Republic reports, well, we have no methane leaks out there, and the EPA comes in and finds 60 methane leaks and explosive levels of methane leaks, Republic simply says, we disagree with those findings. Those aren't true.
Okay,
Any other
no,
questions?
no, we got it.
Any other-
Thank you.
Another copy of that. Yeah,
I have several, sir.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, Ken, say your last name for me?
Ken Eklund.
Eklund, thank you, Ken. So again, 3 minutes. I know that you have a lot of information. Do your best, and then we'll see if you have any questions.
I tried to make it 3 minutes worth.
All right,
So-
and I know that someone is watching the timer, so.
Yeah. So my name is Ken Eklund. I am a North Benton County resident, and I'm also the chair of the Disposal Site Advisory Committee for Benton County. So about 3 years ago, I began to be concerned about the amount of landfill gas that was leaking from Coffin Butte landfill. So I started to look into it, and what I found so far is summarized in the PDF that I provided to Ryan beforehand, in which I think you all have, this one right here. So I really urge you to give it a read. Spoiler, there's a lot of landfill gas coming out of Coffin Butte landfill. This is something that I knew already because people I know who live miles from the landfill would tell me they could smell the landfill. And now the science is catching up with what the boots on the ground have known for a long time. Let me show you what I mean. So there's a scientific nonprofit called Carbon Mapper, whose mission is to develop and deploy advanced technologies to detect greenhouse gas emission sources so that the emissions can be mitigated. They have planes that can fly over a landfill and make images of the methane leaking from it. Last year, they flew over Columbia Ridge landfill. I hope I have the right one, yes. Which, as you know, is a big landfill up near Arlington. And they captured this image of the methane leaking from the landfill. They also, last year, flew over Coffin Butte landfill. And they captured an image of the methane leaking from Coffin Butte. These images are at the same scale. You can see that the plume streaming from Coffin Butte is many times the size of the plume which Columbia Ridge has. Coffin Butte is pretty much a landfill, it's pretty much a methane factory.
Could you turn that so Deanna can see the slides?
Sorry.
I know, it
Yes.
looks like it's this panel, but it's all.
Right, so there's no one online right now. Is that?
There is some other people, yes, but if you would just show it to her.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I thought you were
Uh-huh.
that. So these are at the same scale. And I just want to point out that, you know, this is indeed something that Republic cannot prepare for. They don't know when the airplane is going to fly over. So this just is kind of capture, you know, it's a snapshot of what's going on at the landfill. So Columbia Ridge is 3 times the size of Coffin Butte. Gets 3 times as much garbage per year, and it's got 3 times as much in place already. So something that is going wrong at Coffin Butte is what I would say. So if you care at all about the climate crisis, this should be very concerning to you. If you care at all about environmental justice, this should concern you as well. Because, you know, in this image right here, you know, somebody lives there. Somebody lives down here. Somebody lives down there. I mean, there are people underneath this plume. I mean, when we look at Columbia Ridge, the plume is contained, you know, actually on the, okay, I'll just wrap up. So,
Well, your time is over, I'm sorry.
Very briefly, those two graphics are pages 9 and 10
Okay, so we have
in
it.
your handout.
We have it.
okay,
Deanna, do you have any questions?
yeah, any questions?
How much more do you have to say? Because I wouldn't mind hearing the rest of what you have to say.
There's just
Sorry.
this paragraph.
Yeah.
And it has to do with Marion County, so,
Okay, yeah, would you?
Go right ahead.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Marion County currently is the biggest contributor of trash to Coffin Butte at about 325,000 tons a year. Marion County puts in over 4 times as much as Benton County does. About 1/3 of the gas in this plume is from Marion County trash. So I'm hoping you will do your best to reduce how much we feed the methane factory. And thanks for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much. I'm going to step back for a moment and see if anyone has a question for Kevin, who spoke first, because I did not ask at the time. So do you have any questions from Kevin's testimony?
No. I don't see anything here.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you coming in. We'll have much to see tomorrow. Thank you. So we're on to action items, which there are none. And then we're on to the management update and information items. So I get to turn that over now to Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Share my screen here. And we'll start with that.
Understand that we have a lot. Push this along.
Okay, I'm on the wrong slide. There we go. So we got this slide presentation is going to cover 3 agenda items. So we're going to start off, actually, first of all, sticking to the agenda. The getting to know the solid waste system infrastructure and partners. Happy to, I'm excited.
Prepare.
And this, the public testimony has certainly helped prepare us as well for our tour of Coffin View tomorrow. But also the regional, Pacific Regional Compost, which is where all of our mixed organics go. So looking forward to that. The plan, and I'll send out a reminder to all the attendees, but at least I've got our committee members here. I'll remind you. So we'll be meeting at city manager's office at 12:30 tomorrow. I would recommend wearing closed-toed shoes. Prepare for going to a construction site. Kind of that type of mentality. Jeans, you know, and anyway, maybe a hat, whatever you want. So, but I'm gonna at least closed-toed shoes, please.
Do we bring our bicycle helmets?
If we need hard hats, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll have
So I think they'll probably give us
The best.
high vis and all that kind of stuff. So looking forward to that. The next thing on the agenda is the 2023 cost of service analysis. I'm really hoping, hey, cool. And the folks there are online, so
Yeah, they
great.
came in.
Awesome.
Testimony.
So I'm gonna go through a presentation that kind of talks about some of that. And we've got folks from the MRF on hand to answer any additional questions if you have that. So if you recall, so cost of service analysis, we completed 2023. Last time we talked about this, we were in the middle of 2023. We were kind of trying to figure out where we were going to end. And we were considering, and council considered an improvement rates for both 2024 and 2025. So that slide 2 here is just a reminder of kind of where we ended and what was approved for those rate increases. All those rate increases were then based on, sorry. So we got our graph. I'm getting ahead of myself. So just as a reminder, just kind of from a visual perspective, the green line is the target, targeting a 10% margin of return. The blue line is Marion County, Marion County side of Salem, and the red line is the Polk County side of Salem. So overall, we're actually very close to that target for 2023, and we're projecting to be close to that target for 24-25. So these projections, of course, are based on, I keep getting ahead of myself. If we break down both the Marion and Polk side into their lines of service, the cart, container, and drop box, you can kind of see where those are. The cart side ended up being a bit higher than that 10%, which is where we were targeting. And the good news on that is that is primarily because the disposal cost for commingled recycling had a fairly significant decrease. So that then offset with a larger margin. And so that's where I'm trying to get to. That's where I keep in my mind where we're getting to. So, but that's kind of the breakdown. Still at a consolidated level, even though within those lines of service, for instance, the drop box is less than 5% there in 2024 or 3.7 in 25. Overall, because that drop box is such a small portion of the overall business, it doesn't impact the overall margin. And so with all things being the same and no changes, this is still looking good for 2025, and there would be no need for a rate change. Okay.
Deanna, did you have a question? No. Oh,
I was nodding.
Okay, so again, where we were at last fall was based on certain assumptions, right? And so this shows in the black what those assumptions were. The green and the red shows how those assumptions have changed with more information since last fall. The green means things got a little better. So for instance, fuel for 2024, we're estimating actually a negative 5.7% escalation, so the cost of fuel is going down during 2024 compared to 2023. Labor pretty much staying the same in 24. There's more information now from the bargaining for 25, so we know what that's going to be. Medical insurance is anticipated to be lower. And then the disposal side, from a 0.7% to a 0.1% increase in 24. That's primarily because of that reduced commingled recycling cost. And then inflation, which impacts the vehicle depreciation as well. A little different view there, but not material, not significant changes. When we break down the disposal piece of that, we see current adopted rates at Covanta Marion, which on the next slide you'll see Covanta, by the way, has been rebranded nationwide. They are now Reworld. Though we don't have a vote on that, they're going to have Reworld, REWORLD. And so they are now Reworld Marion is what the local facility is called. And that rate is of course set by Marion County Commissioners, and there's no adopted change in that at this point. Coffin Butte, however, we are seeing an increase there more than what we are anticipating before. Part of that, if I can just quoting a statement, as Coffin approaches, and this is actually mentioned earlier, but so there's I think it's a 1 million per year tonnage cap at Coffin Butte. And so as they are reaching that cap, they are quote unquote prioritizing their waste streams. Right now, Marion County enjoys a very low per ton disposal rate compared to a lot of its other customers. And that rate is being increased.
Sorry, Ryan, can I clarify? That would be for the Polk County part of.
Yes, for the whole. Yeah, so this is waste that's generated from the Polk County side. So this is not impacting directly the Marion County side. So previously we had anticipated about a $2.50 or $3 increase over a couple of years. We're now in 2024 looking at a $4.50 per ton increase, and in 25 is a $9 on top of that per ton increase. So we're going from $39.50 up to $53 over a 2-year period of time.
The hand is that chip.
Oh,
No, it's the mouse.
Oh, thank you.
That's the mouse,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
thank you.
I was thinking, does somebody have a question?
Yard debris and food waste, again, that's our mixed organics. No change in 2024. There is an increase in 25 as some of those rates are increasing, and the cost of processing and reloading at the MRF is also increasing on that. The commingled recycling, that's where we're seeing a nice benefit. We had previously estimated at $117 per ton, and without really knowing what the future of that looks like, we take what the current average is and we project that out. So that was $117 per ton. The year to date in 2024, we're averaging just under $91 a ton. So a pretty significant decrease there. Just knowing that there is increased cost of transportation, some of that, there's a just over 3% increase anticipated for 25.
I have
Yes.
a question.
Yes,
With
please.
that kind of a decrease, do you feel, or have you had any indications if that's because people are putting less in it, or they're doing better with what they put in it? Or is that or am I just speculating?
I don't know. I'm gonna just reach out to our expert panel at the MRF. Is there any indication as to why the rate disposal cost for commingles is getting better? Is the market improving, or What's the,
A couple of factors. It absolutely is not due to a decrease in recycling or a change in the composition of the recycling. It has to do with two things. One, we have marketed our outlets better and have identified another outlet that is at a favorable price. So that is one component. A second component is demand for the material is stronger, therefore the price is coming down.
Wonderful.
okay,
Thank you very much
That
for
helps a
that answer. Thank you.
I do have a question.
Okay, do you want to ask it now?
Possibly, I don't quite understand on the Coffin Butte one, the increased costs. What do you mean by prioritizing waste streams?
Ryan, you or me?
I was gonna try to put it delicately, but Dan, if you wanna rip the Band-Aid.
That's fine.
So that is a direct quote from Republic. But in essence, what it means is as the tonnage cap is approaching, they're choosing to make a business decision to want to shed the lowest price that they can. And so what they're doing is on a lot of these waste streams that are not under contracts that are low, they're raising them up at a faster rate. And if the customer stays, great. But the idea from their perspective is that a few customers will leave, therefore beginning to shed some of that tonnage, freeing up more room underneath that tonnage cap.
Okay, thank you. That's what I figured, but I thought I'd better ask.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so the opposite effect of what's happening with commingled. So there's a limited capacity. And so as there's more going that direction, with limited capacity, it's a market adjustment that they're making.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Sorry for that, breaking the momentum.
No, I really appreciate the question. So that kind of brings us, and is actually a great segue into what I'm gonna call forecast risks. For 2024, I don't think there's gonna be some huge impacts that way, but certainly as early as 2025, we could be looking at some additional challenges, which does have may have impact on our existing adopted rates for 2025 for solid waste. Starting with the top one, I don't see Brian May. Brian's not in the room with you guys, is he?
No.
No, okay, he may not have been able to make it today, but
See you later.
thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.
All right. So again, a lot of this is talking about, a lot of this is, the impact is on the disposal side. And this is, so I'm gonna try to change in my brain, Reworld, not Covanta. So, Marion County, their contract with Reworld Marion, previously expired on June 30th of this year, so at the end of this month. Yesterday, during a Marion County Board of Commissions meeting, that contract was extended for 6 months to the end of this current calendar year. Part of that extension was an increase in how much Reworld is paid by Marion County for every ton that is disposed there at the burner. The impact of that increase is, so right now, the per ton rate that Reworld gets paid is $38.63. I'm just gonna round that to $40 for easy math. The new rate, the effective rate is $60 per ton. So we're looking at a little over a $20 per ton increase in what Marion County is paying Reworld for every ton that is disposed of at Reworld. Now, Marion County has not yet adjusted their disposal rate for waste that goes there. That's, in other words, the rate that the haulers pay. But over this 6-month period of time, Marion County Environmental Services, who manages and where the funding goes to and from for this contract with ReWorld, is going to be eating into their fund balance a little over $1.3 million. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that that's not sustainable. Okay. And so part of the risk here is one, what does if there is an extension, that's an if, what does that extension look like in 2025 once the current extension expires? Just if we were to project that $20 increase, if that were to be extended and passed on through the rate. So if the current 87.45 disposal rate was increased by $20, the effect to our system would be taking that, and assuming no other changes, would be taking the current, I think it was 9.8% margin estimate in 2025, would reduce that to a 6.4% margin. A $10 increase brings us down to about right at that 8%. So there are some unknowns, and I don't know that we are going to, as a city, know what those changes are going to be in time to make an adjustment to our 2025 rates before that. That extension with ReWorld goes into place. So a lot of moving pieces. And some unknowns. But
So if we don't know what that might be and these increases go forward, then it could see potential for 2026 to be quite a bit higher to manage it, because we were able to do that. We weren't able to do a gradual step
right
with increase. So we may be faced with taking to council a much higher rate for 26. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, the other possibility, and this would depend on what the haulers request, is they may ask for a mid-year adjustment on the 2025 rates.
Thank you. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
It could be.
So we can adopt rates at any time. We try to do at the beginning of the year. It makes the COSA process, the analysis, the rate setting, just makes that cleaner. But we have had mid-year rate changes before, and that's certainly at the council's purview to do so.
Okay. Sometimes it feels less painful.
Any questions on that before I go to the number 2?
Any questions, Tim?
Okay. We've already, I think.
Did someone have a question? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you.
The next one, I think we actually, I think I've covered this fairly well. The disposal rate for Coffin Butte. There are some additional aspects of that. There is a contracted rate between the MRF and Coffin Butte for waste that comes. So we took a tour of the MRF.
Yes.
Right. And the contamination and the things that are not able to be recovered, that waste goes to Coffin Butte.
Okay.
Okay. There's another element that when, if you recall, when ReWorld is down for cleaning or whatever, and they're not able to take the waste from Marion County, that gets redirected to the MRF, and then the MRF then takes that down to Coffin Butte. So that cohort of waste that gets redirected from ReWorld to eventually to Coffin Butte, there's a dispute right now between MRF and Coffin Butte Republic Services as to the rate that should be paid on that waste that's redirected from ReWorld, if that makes sense. There's a potential impact of, I think it was around $600,000 over an annual period of time that would be an impact to the MRF. But that could flow through in other areas and directly to the city. So that's one aspect. So not only the waste that's going directly from Marion or from Polk County down to Coffin Butte, but also other wastes that are going that direction from the Marion and Polk County areas. There's increase, we could be looking at increases there. So whether it be directly or indirectly.
So may I ask a question? When you say that the materials that would be going from Marion County, is this any areas that are out in Marion County that are outside of Salem? Is that in, so I'm just trying to understand if there's costs that Salem might be incurring that are from.
Yeah, so what I'm, so I'm talking about as a waste shed, when ReWorld is unable to take that waste, whether it originates within the city of Salem or other areas of Marion County. The routes cross those boundaries all day long, right? And so
Correct.
we break that out within the COSA, but on an day-to-day operational aspect, there's no distinguishing necessarily between Kaiser and City of Salem and Brooks and some of those, right? But so yes, that waste could certainly be coming from City of Salem. There could be
Could be coming from the city, but it could be also
right.
additional areas.
But I guess so there could definitely be either a direct or indirect impact on the costs for City of Salem. Yes.
Ryan, can I add some context?
Yes.
Within Marion County, approximately 400,000 tons of waste, that's a round number, 400,000 tons of waste is generated. Approximately 50,000 tons of that is organic, approximately 20,000 is coming with recycling, and approximately 330 or so thousand is municipal solid waste. Of that 300,000 of municipal solid waste, 97,000 tons, I'm using last year's numbers, was taken to Covanta ReWorld, and the remaining 200 and roughly 30,000 tons was taken to MRF. And if it's construction and demolition waste, we process it, pull out the recycling. But also part of that is commercial and residential waste. 83,000 tons of that was over Covanta's capacity, in which we accepted and transferred down to Coffin Butte. It's that 83 of commercial and residential that is in dispute in the contract. So it's a substantial amount of tonnage. I guess I just wanted to illustrate.
Sure. Keep it in mind, Brian.
Yep. So that's number two.
Go ahead.
Yes,
On number 2, what does, it says additionally $19.71 recovery fee per load, no longer being waived for Valley. I keep hearing about Republic, and so what does this mean?
Okay, so in West Salem, we have 2 haulers, Republic. So again, I'm gonna use Republic Services, but there's different divisions of Republic Services. And so in West Salem, we have 2 haulers. One is Valley Recycling, which is privately owned. And then we have Republic Services. And I say Valley, I should have also said for the Republic Services hauler in West Salem. So
Okay, so this isn't just the one hauler, it's both haulers in West Salem.
we are being told that both haulers, again, you have Republic Services who owns Coffin Butte, who is charging Republic Services hauler 2 different divisions of Republic Services. And so it is our understanding that cost that is no longer, that was waived for, let's say, West Salem, it was $19.71 per load. That environmental cost was being waived, that other communities taking waste to Coffin Butte were paying. That is no longer going to be waived. And so West Salem customers through their haulers will be bearing the cost potentially of that additional $20 per load. Yes. So the writing on the wall is that Coffin Butte, as they are nearing end of life, it feels like they're trying to get every dollar that they can out of that facility before they close it up, if I can speak frankly.
And I think that that is a good thing to do. So thank you. So West Salem will see an increase because of this additional cost.
So that 1971 wouldn't, at this point, if it was just that, wouldn't be enough to adjust rates for 25, but it will certainly be, if we have to adjust rates next year, mid-year, it'll be calculated. Otherwise, we'll see that impact in 26.
The reason why the two sites of Salem are treated separately, just because in two different counties. Could they consolidate Salem as a city for rate structure?
I think that's a great thing we need to be looking at sooner rather than later. Yeah.
So is that something that the counties would work with? You know, it seems like the counties keep very separated.
Well, I think we would look at it from our rate setting process. The biggest driver between or having different rates for the two sides is because of the disposal cost. Historically, the disposal on West Salem has been significantly less expensive. That's becoming less and less of a difference between those. And so I think at some point we need to be looking at just a citywide rate rather than having two different zones.
At least for this body. It
Yes.
would make sense.
Yes. Thank you
Everything
for,
looking out for the city.
thank you for bringing that up.
Yep.
It would make it easier.
Yes, it would certainly eliminate a lot of complication and complexity to our rate setting. Number 3, so volatile recycling market. So I mentioned that the $90 or so average for the first 4 months of 2024. What I haven't mentioned yet is that average is within that average, we've seen as low as $65, and we've seen as high as $138. So while the average has been lower, there's still a lot of volatility in there. As long as that volatility still averages on the lower side, we're great. And we're hoping that markets continue to expand. There becomes more of a demand for this type of material. But that 138 scares me. But that was only 1 month. So just knowing that, yes, it's lower, but there is still, trying to guess what the recycling market is about as hard as trying to guess what gas prices are going to be. I mean, those are all over the place, right? And so there's still some risk there. The last thing I wanted to talk about is just equipment costs. As there's a nationwide or even a global move towards electric vehicles, of course, the heavy equipment diesel industry is not or is being pulled along with that. We are seeing the Republic Services is the hauling company will be doing a pilot project with I think 1 or 2 trucks, electric vehicle trucks in Salem, I think starting in August. So we'll get more information as we get closer to that. But the problem is that for existing diesel trucks, and until EV trucks are proven, the availability of new diesel trucks, the chassis and the engines are becoming scarce, which so pushes out those costs up. And then also for those that are aging, if they're trying to wait until EV trucks are more available, the cost of maintenance and all that is increasing. So there's a number of aspects that could be pushing costs of the equipment to support the system upward. So those are some of the risks that we're identifying at this point.
So you're preparing us.
Yes, I don't want it to be a surprise.
Anyone from MRF have any questions or anything they'd like to add?
I would just clarify a little bit on the trucks. I know Ryan said they're getting scarce. They're putting allocations on those, so they have to sell a certain number of electric vehicles to release allocations for diesels. That got pushed down another year, but that is gonna be in place next year. So that is kind of the pause on what we're doing with equipment. And just a little more context, an electric vehicle is about twice what the current diesel vehicles we're using are now. And we still don't have fueling stations for those, and so that's a huge cost as well, infrastructure wise.
Well, what are the actual costs of a diesel truck versus a electric truck?
Yeah, I haven't bought any this year. I'm in that holding zone. The last I've heard truck getting close to 400. So 400,000. So the electric vehicle, which doesn't do what the diesel truck does today. It's about I would say 60 to 70% of that job. It costs 800,000, and but you have to still get the infrastructure for the fueling on the charging station, plus getting the high voltage into your facility, which is a significant endeavor, if you could imagine.
Climate action is not cheap.
No.
And
No, it's not.
there are approximately, I don't know the exact number, but there's somewhere around 100 collection vehicles that operate within Marion County that would be incorporated and unincorporated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Deanna, any questions? No. Thank you, Ryan. Ready to go to the next one?
Solid waste policy discussion. So
Gotta tell,
wanting to,
be 10 minutes late.
kind of tag on to the discussion of COSA and that, one of the last aspects that we wanted to kind of discuss that's in our policy considerations is CPI inflation factors, kind of that rate review. And so, I also wanted to just point out, yes, I moved, waste reduction statements and zero waste over into the policy considerations, column as requested from, last month. But today wanted to talk about kind of the CPI, and I thought that would be just, it would fit well with the rest of the conversation we've had today.
Great, thank you.
So this is just goes in, this is gonna take a little, I'm trying not to go too deep of a dive, but a little bit of the kind of, we talked about, all right, what the fuel forecast looks like, or what CPI. So this is just a little bit of, part of the discussion could be, do we want to, and I think there's some value in formalizing where we get the information to inform how we forecast costs. So we don't have to say, well, I think we ought to do it this way, or maybe we should do this way. We would define that this is a source of information, and then we can talk about how we're going to use that source, or interpret that, or use that for forecasting, but maybe formalizing the source of some of these information. So for instance, diesel fuel, historically we've used, so U.S. Energy Information Administration, as what's called the West Coast #2 diesel ultra low sulfur, and where there's a very specific, and it's in retail price per gallons. What you see in the table below in the gray shaded area are the actual price per gallon for this. I was going to say CPI, but anyway, for this index. How we then take that information and try to extrapolate into the future what that might look like is, again, not having a crystal ball, not knowing what the future holds. You see the last one there, 2024 of April, is $4.672 per gallon. The assumption that's being made with how we've been forecasting is that whatever that latest month price is what's going to be holding indefinitely.
Okay.
So we then take, if you look over in the right-hand column, the annual average, we're taking the average of that full year. So in 2024, we have the 4 months of actuals plus that 4.672 for the rest of the months, averaging that, then comparing that annual average to the prior year annual average and coming up with a year-over-year percentage change.
Yeah.
So we see on the year-over-year percentage change for 2024, it decreased by 5.7%. So that's kind of some of the mechanics,
Yeah,
if you will, of how we're calculating that.
and that's what we saw.
So that's, right, so if you look back on fuel, it was at 5.7%.
See?
Yep.
Training work.
There you go. The next one, labor and medical insurance. So, this is a reminder, I think I may have mentioned this before. One of our haulers, Republic Services, has a collective bargaining unit for their drivers and for the majority of their employees. Our other, local, privately owned, family owned businesses do not operate under that collective bargaining. But we use that collective bargaining as the basis for what we anticipate the escalation or labor rates would increase for the full system. If that makes sense.
For
So,
labor rates, but when you say labor rates, does that include medical insurance?
no, medical insurance, so ORA, which is the Oregon Refuse and Recycling Association. It's a industry association here in Oregon that all of the haulers and industry members have formed. So they have a group plan.
Okay,
medical insurance.
all right, so it's not like some of the smaller ones don't have access.
Well, absolutely, they definitely have access to that, and they're all part of that group plan, if they're a member of ORA.
Which is why it's separate from labor. It's a really different thing.
Yes, yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. So those are, I think that kind of covers those two. The next, disposal, we've talked a lot about disposal, but I want to just go into that just a little, maybe with a little bit more granularity. Municipal solid waste, generally Salem Marion side. So we talked about that rate is approved by the Marion County Board of Commissioners. There's a combination of things that go into that. One is how much is the actual cost of disposal, which is what we're talking about with ReWorld and their contract with ReWorld and how much Marion County pays them per ton. The difference in that pays for Marion County's solid waste and their environmental services, waste education and outreach. The Earthwise program and, all the work that they do to support that. And so there's a margin in there. There's more than that, but there's, so they, Marion County, owns and operates, so there's Browns Island out by Mentone, there's the North Marion transfer station, there's Skirts. So they own a lot of these other properties as well, and there's some long-term reserves and some liability and costs that come with those as well. It also pays for battery recycling, the paint program, a number of other types of things that we don't normally think of, but are
Still part.
paid for by that margin. So that's where, as that margin, there's a $20 difference or reduction in that margin. Marion County is going to have to be asking those hard questions of what do they pay for versus maybe that cost gets, maybe they, as an example, they decide, hey, we can't pay for the battery program directly ourselves, we're going to let the cities take care of that. Or something, they may have to make some of those tough decisions. The Polk County side, again, we talked about that, is set by Coffin Butte Landfill, which is owned and operated by Republic Services. The mixed organic side, that rate is set by Marion Resource Recovery Facility. Two main factors on that are the cost to reload and transport that to the Pacific Regional Compost, which is one of the two facilities we'll be touring tomorrow. And then, of course, the cost of actual disposal at the PRC at that facility. And finally, commingled recycling. Again, we talked briefly about that earlier. That's the average actual year-to-date actual average of the market rate paid by the hauler. So at that point in time, when we were looking at rates, was it last August, we were trying to, in May, it was one number, in July it was another, because we got more information. We had more actuals that we were able to factor into that average. And so we're always trying to refine that as close as possible to the time we're adopting rates to have the most accurate information. Any questions on that before I move forward? The last one is just general inflation. This is pretty much everything else that wasn't covered by something else. It's applied to all the other costs in general. So the base, I'm gonna talk about this, but the base that we use for all these is the previous fully completed year. So we take what 2023 was, and we take whatever that inflation factor is, and that's how we come up with the factor, the expense, forecasted expense for the current year. The escalation source on this is consumer price index, all urban consumers, so it's a CPIU. More specifically, it's all items in West, size class B, C, all urban consumers not seasonally adjusted. The kind of the process or the mechanics of it, again, similar table to what we had before. The dark or the gray area are the actual CPI. What you have down below is the change in percentage from the previous year for that month to the current year for that month. Effectively, what we're doing though is we're taking that annual average of the CPI and coming up with the difference. Now, with fuel, if you remember, we took whatever the most recent month was and we just extend that out.
Yeah.
Right? A little different methodology here. The long-term CPI average is 2.5%. So it goes up and down all the time, but the average long-term is around 2.5%. So what we're doing is, right, the last one was a 3.7% in April 2024, which is the year-over-year change. We're then, for the rest of the calculation, that forecasting, we're normalizing back down to a 2.5%. Did I capture that fairly accurately, Dan? Does that sound about right?
Yes, it is. I just want to clarify, you do notice the 3.7 from April 24 does jump to 4 and it bounces around. What we're doing with the normalization is taking the month over month increase and normalizing it down to the 0.021, which if you multiply 0.021 times 12, that's 2.5. And apply that monthly. But you will see some up and down volatility as you go through the rest of 24, simply because of the effect of the previous year of actual inflation that's in there. So I just wanted to clarify, we didn't make up the 373844341 arbitrarily. That is a component of taking the existing inflation and normalizing it to 0.021 per month. Sorry, 0.21 per month.
Right.
Which is 2.5% annualized.
12 is 0.21. Yep. Right. Yep.
Great, thank you.
So I know it's getting a little bit of the weeds here, but part of this would be as we're looking at adopting a policy around this, maybe trying to take some of this and then formalizing it into a document with the rest of it to have a basis, a known basis for how we're calculating this, so it's not in question.
Yeah. That's what you're trying.
Yeah. The last thing, actually, thought we were gonna take longer.
Ryan, we need to jump. We have a meeting with Republic.
I'm sorry, say it again.
We need
Oh,
to jump off.
That's right.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're done on the COSA conversation, so thank you guys, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the last thing on our agenda, main part of our agenda is recycling modernization update. Okay, I don't want to forget the way last year. So let me, before I do that, I wanted to just briefly, our solid waste committee 2024 work plan. So there was one change which Jim pointed out, reminded me of on Monday. So I was shooting the very last page on here.
I think
The large.
it's separate.
Separate.
I think I got it. Thank you. Now I have it. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe this.
There it is, okay. So I was hoping to also talk about medical waste, and go through some of that today. We don't yet have the COSA for the medical waste portion, so we should, I should be receiving that shortly from the haulers. So looking at talking about that and sort of that similar type of conversation we had on the rest of solid waste.
Yeah.
We'll have that on the medical waste side of
Okay,
things.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and then also just providing more context around just medical waste in general and how it's collected and managed and all of that within Polk County, with particularly the city of Salem. The other portion there is the under other topics for July is the city of Salem Public Works Waste Processing Facility. So looking forward to Public Works talking a little bit about that. That's going to be on the heels of our tour tomorrow. So there may be some lots of,
Co-mingling. There might be
some
co-mingling.
co-mingling of information. So
Where is that? Public Works Waste Processing Facility.
It's by the airport.
Oh, what
south end of the airport property.
does it look like?
So it's $6 million beautiful facility.
We're chuckling.
I know.
It's,
Well, I drive by there, so I'm thinking, okay, where's that?
yeah, so is there, I forgot what it's called, but when you go,
Airway.
the Airway Drive, yeah,
Right.
the south, you almost don't even notice it. So it's like a municipal, small little building on the side. There's a bunch of stuff underground. And that's where, anyway, we'll learn more about that next month.
So is it as you've gone to the furthest southern side where the hangars are of the airport is across the street? So it's in Ward 3.
Well, no, I drive by there, so I was,
No, I just.
there was a pickup parked out there for a while, and then
Yes.
the next time I drove by, it was burnt, so
Yeah,
there's
there's
gotta be like between that truck and Turner Road.
If you didn't know it was there, if you didn't know to look for it, you wouldn't know it. Yeah, blends in well.
Because didn't we have a contract and there was something recently on an agenda that was in Ward 3 and it was at the airport and I was confused because it was in Ward 3. But I think,
Let's see it.
yeah, I do kind of. Okay,
So we also want to start our conversation possibly on multifamily properties and kind of the recycling and organics options.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a one and done. There's gonna be a
no,
lot. There's also some aspects of the Recycling Modernization Act that kind of fit into that. And so I think we'll just start.
July's gonna be busy.
Yeah, we're gonna start touching on that and we'll see that multiple times over the coming months. But we'll just kind of start that conversation and start thinking about that. So getting back to
So.
RMA.
Handy, so I know what's going
going on section.
Page 15.
What's that? Hey, keep me on track. Last page is here. So last month, I had this page up, this was the update at the time. We talked about Circular Action Alliance. They had provided a plan to DEQ. There was public comment available on that. Aura, we talked about before. They had many comments. They did a great job of providing some feedback on that. We know the DEQ is going to reject the plan, so that was just kind of a part of the iterative process. The next thing on there, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, is that discuss recycling service expansion requests, funding and existing recycling depots in the spring. So we are in the spring and summer of 2024. And so more specifically, I'm sure CAA was working on this kind of in the background. But here 2 weeks ago, local government was, at least I was surprised, CAA through another company that they're working with presented us with what's called the ORSOP, the Oregon Recycling System Optimization Plan. Lots of acronyms, I apologize. Basically, last year we had our local government needs assessment for the DEQ. We talked briefly about that. We talked at a very high level. They said, do you want to expand recycling? We basically said yes. Do you want to expand curbside? Yes. Do you want to expand depots? Yes. Do you think you might need to expand? We basically said yes, there are some areas that we want to expand. Now we're refining that through a questionnaire. It's about a 100-page questionnaire that I'm just going to skip right to the very end. We are actively working with the haulers in Marion County. Met with them for a couple hours earlier this week. We have a follow-up meeting that I'm hosting next Monday. All of our haulers, our 6 haulers, Marion County, the MRF, are filling out different pieces of that information, which then the city, me, is due to have that. I'm going to consolidate that information, and it's due back to CAA, the Producer Responsible Organization, by June 28th. So we're moving very quickly on that. What we're doing, the different aspects of it, one, for instance, on-route collections. We right now have a very robust curbside commingled recycling system, which is great. It works well. There are, however, the list of, talk about a statewide list of recycling material that will be collected. Some of those are local government's responsibilities to collect. Some of those are the pros' responsibility to collect. So on the on-route collections, that list of items has expanded. We need to be talking about, does our current system, will it have the capacity to collect the current and now the expanded items that's expected to be collected starting July 1 of 2025.
Of 25, okay.
Yeah, does this mean we need to go from a every other week collection to a weekly collection? Do we need more trucks? Do we need more? So there's some talk about, and this isn't the last say on what's going to be purchased, but this is how the city's local government expanding on and providing more information to the pros on what we need to meet the new requirements under the Recycling Modernization Act. So we'll be collecting that information. What are the existing number of routes? What are we currently collecting? Trucks and all that type of thing, and providing that back to the pros to help inform them as they develop their amended or reworked plan that is being that they submit in September.
So Ryan, does that mean that they will also need to be looking at the collection sites, being able to collect the extra material or the additional materials that we're doing, every week instead of every other week? And so they would need more staffing. And then do they need to also find buyers of the materials? I mean, this is like extensive.
It is very extensive, yes. So again, we're going back to, I'm going to kind of step back to this whole RMA process, and it's the producer responsibility organization.
That's right. Yeah.
So much of this in terms of helping to expand the market, helping to, in all those areas, a lot of that responsibility is being pushed back onto the pro.
Okay.
Not all of it. We have responsibility, but they're also getting more responsibility, so more.
So that'll be on
more things.
that'll be more on the end that I was asking about, because they'll be responsible.
Yeah, so but part of this is helping to develop end markets, or rather ensuring that the material that is collected goes to a certified responsible end market.
Okay, thank you.
Another piece that we may be looking at doing some additional expansion are depots. Currently, each of our haulers usually at their offices has a depot. So I was talking about DNO just north of Kubler. They've got So they collect cardboard and scrap metal and some other things. They may need to expand, add some additional fencing or have some additional containers. So looking at a closer look at each of the existing depots and what do they need to do to expand to be able to collect what they would be required to collect. Reload facility. So the MRF, as an example, is a reload facility. It sits outside of the city of Salem, but from a waste shed perspective, Marion County Waste Shed, will be presenting, it may actually be Marion County, because Marion County as a local government has their own report that they're submitting. They may be including that information there. We'll coordinate with them on that. But what are the needs within our community for a reload facility, which is again taking consolidating what all the trucks pick up curbside, putting in a bigger truck and sending it to its end market or to the processor or wherever it needs to go. But the idea there is so that all of the collection trucks aren't driving to the end and reducing emissions and fuel and that type of thing. The next is the pro acceptance list. So we mentioned the pros are responsible for the collection and handling of certain materials. One of those, very interestingly, this is where we're going to have to coordinate with them, glass bottles has moved from a local government material where we're responsible for collecting it to a pro responsibility.
Can you remind me what PRO stands for?
Producer Responsible Organization. Yeah, we'll just call that industry from a manufacturing perspective.
So all the beer.
Yeah.
Beer makers that will have to figure out how they're gonna take back the glass bottles.
So the interesting thing though is I mentioned we have a very robust curbside collection system. So we already as the city provide curbside collection of glass. But now it's going to be the responsibility of the pros to provide that service. So for instance, we could just step back and say, we're not doing it anymore. Pros, you figure it out. Or we could say, this might be a place where we can negotiate and say, we already have a system that's in place. And I'm going to have to call her back.
But this is also, so what about the glass that's already, you pay 10 cents for and then you take it back?
And that's
That's
the
a whole
bottle.
so that's a whole different.
Yeah, the
So
bottle
this is
return.
just what goes into
Completely.
our little,
Yep.
the little.
So anything that's not collected, any of the glass is not collected through the bottle deposit, bottle return. So we might look
Spaghetti
at,
sauce and wine and olive oil.
pickles.
Pickles, yeah.
We have a lot of pickle jars in our house. So we might look at saying, hey, we already have this system in place. Pros, you don't have to figure it out, but if you can help pay for our collection of glass, and so we may be able to get some funding that way to help pay for the system that's already in place.
And then through where it gets collected, then they'll manage it from there.
Yep.
For whatever we do.
Another piece of the RMA is transportation reimbursement. The long and short of it is from the source of where something is collected to its end destination, or where it's consolidated to its end destination. If that is greater than 50 miles, the pros are responsible for paying the cost of the transportation. The idea with this is to particularly help out rural areas where it's not cost effective for them to transport. And so, but we may be able to take advantage of that in this area as well. We're driving some stuff up to Portland. Some of the commingled goes up to Portland. Whether or not that fits, that's 50 miles or not, I mean, that's maybe right on the edge there. So, but taking an assessment of our current system, where things are transported to, within our system, and does that fall inside or outside of 50 miles? So we have a lot of information to collect and put together over the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
Or less. And then we have a lot of folks working together to get that done. It's not good, again, not the last step in this iteration, but it's the next major step in this iterative process for the pros in determining what level of service and then the funding to support that in the city of Salem and Marion County.
There's so many moving pieces for you to. Yeah.
So that's the end of it. I'm gonna leave
Take a
that
deep
there.
breath.
I will say, I apologize, I owe this committee a response to Mr. Shepke's public testimony from last month, which is almost, but not yet done. I was hoping to have that here, actually hoping to send that out before this meeting. I'm hoping that because of some of these other things that came up, I did not get that done. But that will be out to you hopefully soon. And of course, to Mr. Shepke, so. That, let's see,
You don't want to finish this? Thank you.
rate review, we did that, we did.
Modern Day, you got that.
RMA, others, and the last one is yours. It adjourned. Unless there's some other things to other questions.
So, Deanna, do you have any questions? No. All right. Brian, excellent work. This is really a lot of material, and I just kept thinking how when you lay your head on the pillow, you're probably having visions of all of these things floating around. I'm sure glad I just get to manage the meeting. All right, so if there isn't anything else, I'll call this meeting to adjourn.